All right, I think we're live. If anyone in the chat can hear me, just push 1. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for that confirmation, Complex Design. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is an addendum to the At the Real Dana Show after stream, based on the interview she did about maybe 30 minutes ago about Jim Crow in the South. And there were some comments made about Jim Crow as well as the banning of CRT that I wanted to address. This is not an attack on Dana, but it's a consistent talking point that goes on in Black social spaces, that the Congressional Black Caucus doesn't do anything. And I hear this a lot, and I want to make sure that we're covering the facts as accurate as possible so that we're not having any sort of misinformation spread around around Black social spaces. I do hear this quite often, especially amongst Black people who are conservative. And so I want to make sure that we cover this as quickly as possible. I did send a link out to people who want to join, but if you do want to join from the chat, just let me know so that we can actually arrange a link to be sent to you. Or we can put the link in the chat as well, whoever wants to defend Jim Crow in the South. Reigning Woman, how are you doing? AO, what's going on? Complex Design, what's going on? I'm listening. Peace, what's going on? Let me share my screen real quick. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, I got a confirmation. You can see my screen. Okay, so this is from the Congressional Black Caucus.gov, okay, CBC.gov. And this is from the 116th Congress. What just took place was 117th Congress, so I want to make sure that we're covering the most relevant information that has been posted. And so this is their biannual, I shouldn't say biannual, this is their source of record for all the work that they've done and things that they've contributed to, okay? So I'm gonna go through it. I won't bore you with the chair's message or anything like that, but this is the source of record, okay? Let me start with the CBC takes the lead on COVID-19 response for Black people. Let me zoom in on this. The old adage remains true today. When America catches a cold, Black America catches pneumonia. That is because Black families have suffered for generations from epidemic of persistent poverty, discrimination, and the state-sanctioned oppression. The CBC worked to identify, fight for, and win the big legislative policies and the maximum level of resources possible to help the Black community not just survive the pandemic, but prepared to thrive in the aftermath. On March 20th, 2020, the CBC submitted an 11-page proposal to, the House and Senate leadership with recommendations for provisions to support Black America in COVID-19 relief packages. Under the leadership of Rep. Robin Kelly, chair of the CBC Health Brain Trust, and Rep. Barbara Lee, a senior member on the House Appropriations Committee, CBC members fought to ensure many of these recommendations were included in relief packages, including $25 billion in funding for targeted testing, $30 billion for lending institutions focused on underserved communities, direct payment assistance for people struggling to make ends meet, a moratorium on foreclosures. Sorry, this is on foreclosures and evictions, and $447 million for historically Black colleges and universities, among other included priorities. In addition to legislating in Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus has worked to provide oversight of the Trump administration's handling of the pandemic. When Jim Clyburn chairs the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis, which was established to conduct a full and complete investigation taxpayer funds and relief programs to address the coronavirus crisis. Additionally, the CBC issued a strong statement when President Trump announced the United States withdrawal from the World Health Organization, stating the move to withdraw in the middle of the pandemic highlights the administration's gross mismanagement of the global health emergency and a complete abdication of international responsibility and leadership. To engage directly with Black leaders and constituents around the country, the CBC launched Speak Up and Speak Out, a virtual town hall series on COVID-19, systemic racism, and Black America. The series consisted of telephone town halls, Zoom webinars, and Instagram live sessions addressing a range of issues from healthcare needs and small business impact to the role of essential employees and first responders. Like the CBC's national travel, these conversations centered Black communities in the policy debate about COVID-19 relief packages. So what we're seeing here is the Congressional Black Caucus, the majority of the members, if not all of the members, came together and put together a COVID-19 relief package in the last congressional session. So when people say, what is the Congressional Black Caucus doing? They don't do anything. We would have to beg to differ on this, okay? Now let's go to police reform. CBC takes the lead in passing transformative policing reform. In the midst of the pandemic, it seems like everything stopped except racism. George Floyd's horrifying death at the hands of Minneapolis police sparked massive protests across the country and around the world. Tens of thousands of Americans took to the streets to demand that community leaders address the brutality, racial disparities, and lack of accountability in American policing. All 54 African nations sought a United Nations inquiry into systematic racism and police brutality in the United States and elsewhere. Members of the CBC have fought for policing reform for decades. That is why Speaker Pelosi called on Chair Bass to lead the legislative response in the House of Representatives. On June 8th, 2020, Chair Bass introduced the Justice in Policing Act of 2020. Senator Kamala Harris and Cory Booker introduced an identical bill in the Senate. The Justice and Policing Act is the first ever bold, comprehensive approach to hold police accountable and change the culture of law enforcement. The bill includes reforms to prevent police brutality in the first place, like a registry for bad cops and national standards for the profession. When police brutality does happen, the bill would make it easier to hold police accountable. It is too hard to prosecute police because the burden of proof is so high. It is too hard to sue police for police brutality because of this is spelled completely wrong. I don't know what they used to write this piece right here. They have immunity from personal liability. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act would make it easier to prosecute and sue cops for police brutality. On June 25th, 2020, 30 days after George Floyd's murder, the House of Representatives passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, HR 7120, by a bipartisan vote of 236 to 181. Tamir Rice was an unarmed 12-year-old child shot by an officer who had been fired by another department. Had the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act been law, there would have been a registry of bad cops and Tamir might be alive today. Ironically, the bill was passed in the House on what would have been his 18th birthday. Unfortunately, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to bring up the bill in the Senate for a vote. Following the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act in the House of Representatives, CBC members continued to highlight the bill and call for its immediate passage in the Senate. The day after the passage of the bill, Representative Karen Bass, Hakeem Jeffries, and Val Demings joined Joy Reid for an MSNBC Live featured on the road to reform. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is what happened, okay? There are a lot of people in this space, in Black social spaces, that want to make it seem like the Congressional Black Caucus didn't do anything. This is not true. Okay, this is the second bill that they've proposed together that was in Black people's best interest. CBC introduces bold legislation to improve the lives of Black families. In addition, sorry, let me make sure nobody's trying to come up here. Yeah. In addition, sorry. In September 2020, the CBC unveiled the second edition of the Jobs and Justice Act. The bill was first introduced in 2018 by then CBC Chair Cedric Richmond. The Jobs and Justice Act of 2020 is an omnibus bill of over 200 pieces of legislation championed by members of the Congressional Black Caucus and addresses a wide range of issues from community and economic development and educational opportunities to health disparities, environmental justice, and comprehensive criminal justice reform. It is a bold proposal that would improve the social and economic conditions of Black Americans. And CBC members hosted a virtual town hall to discuss key provisions of the Jobs and Justice Act of 2020, including support for Black-owned businesses and expanding access to the ballot in a critical election year. Division A, jobs. The division includes several provisions to advance economic opportunity in Black communities, including infrastructure investment, workforce development, poverty alleviation measures, small business and economic development support, housing and wealth creation provisions, and investments in education. Division B, justice. The division includes bold reform for our nation's criminal justice system from end to end, from mandatory minimums and the death penalty to reentry programs and social services for formerly incarcerated individuals. This section also includes provisions to address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on African Americans, address historical health disparities, deliver environmental justice, and expand access to the ballot. Okay. Let me zoom in on this one. CBC resistance to Trump administration policies. Throughout the 116th Congress, members of the CBC fought to hold the Trump administration accountable and oppose repressive policies that directly harm Black communities. For only the third time in our nation's history, on December 18, 2019, the House of Representatives voted to impeach Donald J. Trump. 8 CBC members served on the House Committee on the Judiciary, Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, Henry Johnson, or Hank Johnson, sorry, Karen Bass, Cedric Richmond, Hakeem Jeffries, Val Demings, Joe Neguse, and Lucy McBath. Advanced 2 articles of impeachment through the committee to the House floor. All CBC members in the House of Representatives were unified in voting to impeach President Donald J. Trump for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. So we know where the Congressional Black Caucus stands on this, okay? Let me go through this real quickly. CBC fights against hunger in Black America. Throughout the 116th Congress, the CBC fought several proposals by the Trump administration to kick millions of Americans off the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, under the leadership of Representative Marsha Fudge, a senior member on the House Agriculture Committee. The CBC sent several letters to the Department of Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue, urging him to rescind the department's proposed rules to roll back SNAP eligibility. The rules would have cut benefits to 3 million people and limit access to school meals for nearly 1 million children. Okay. These are areas that the Congressional Black Caucus has been active in the last session. So when you hear people say that the Congressional Black Caucus does nothing, we have to check the record so that we're actually being truthful in what we're saying and we're being accurate to what was being done before. All right, let me go to the next item. Zoom in. Yeah, CBC fights to deliver resources to Black communities. In the 116th Congress, the CBC was fortunate to have a record number of CBC members on the House Appropriations Committee, which is responsible for funding the federal government. Reps Bonnie Watson Coleman and Brenda Lawrence joined senior appropriations members, Reps Sanford Bishop and Barbara Lee, on the committee. Following the end of the longest government shutdown in the United States history, members fought to secure maximum funding for Black communities. Each year, the CBC submits a list of funding priorities to the Appropriations Committee. Thanks to the leadership of the Senior Appropriations Committee members, many of these priorities were included in the fiscal year 2020 spending bill. The legislation, including funding for our historically Black colleges and universities, the Census Bureau, workforce training, affordable housing, community health centers, and makes critical investments in our infrastructure to create new jobs, among many other provisions. For example, the bill includes $10.6 billion for Head Start and for child care and development block grant, an increase of $550 million over the previous year, $1.7 billion for Job Corps, $25 billion above the, $25 million above the 2019 enacted level, $1.1 billion for federal TRIO programs, which support students from disadvantaged backgrounds, an increase of $30 million above the 2019 enacted level, and $25 million in new funding for federal gun prevention research. Okay. When we say what has the CBC done for Black people, we're seeing it happen in real time here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is drop the link for those who think that they want to challenge these talking points. Zone, thank you for posting the CBC's 116th Congress under the year report in the chat for those who think that I'm just making this up. We'll see if anybody comes up here. If they don't come up here, then we'll peel out of here. But I will give 5 minutes to see if anybody comes up and tries to challenge this this notion that the Congressional Black Caucus does nothing. I would love to see somebody come up here and defend it. Because if they don't do anything, then who else is? I would like to know that. Who else is? Especially if they're in the Republican Party. Let me know. I'd like to hear that. Dana had 200 people over there. And there were a lot of people co-signing what she was saying. Where are all these people at now? And it doesn't necessarily have to be from Dana's chat room. What about all these other people in the quote unquote Black manosphere who share these same sentiments, that somehow, some way that the CBC doesn't do anything, that they're paper pushers, what I heard the other day, but those same folks are not over here trying to challenge this. Links in the chat. Link is in the chat, man. What's going on, Johnny Blaze? Gary Seven, what's going on? Okay, cool. No, I'm just, Nothing irks me more than misinformation, especially when the information is easily accessible to verify whether or not something happened. We don't have to speculate. All this information is widely available. What was done and who did what. You don't have to make up, versions of history that are inaccurate. You could easily come up here and actually prove that they didn't do anything. It's not that difficult. Or maybe it might be difficult for you, but it's not difficult for me to prove that they did. So where is everybody at in this space that claimed that none of this is taking place? No, it's cool. It's if you go to the community tab, Johnny Blaze, there is a recent comment that I put up there with the real Dana. She had an interview earlier today, which is what I'm responding to. And there's a lot of people who are over there that were co-signing this idea that, the CBC doesn't do anything, the Congressional Black Caucus doesn't do anything, when in reality, this is not true. I'll give another 2 or 3 more minutes, man. If nobody comes up here, then we'll just peel out. But the idea that nothing was done, I would like to see these people prove that. Links in the chat. You can always come up. Yeah, where are all these people at now? Nowhere to be found. Let me share my screen real quick. Make sure that's visible. No, Johnny Blaze, they can handle, but they just, I'm giving a fair opportunity for them to defend these points. That the CBC does nothing. Because there's, everybody's a conservative in this space until it's time to actually be a conservative. Chat room conservatism and being on panel are two different things. You got to defend your points when you get on the panel. I had somebody tell me the other day, they don't have to get on the panel. They can easily debate me from the chat room. Very strange people. I dropped a link, where are all these people at? Where are all these people at? I don't know, man. A whole lot of folks selling wolf tickets. I mean, there were quite a few things that were said on that panel in the interview that Dana had with Larry Hom. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But the thing here is, you have to be able to defend what you say is not true. I'm defending what I say is true. And I'm providing a source to it. So where are all these people who claim that it's not true? Now, if I renamed this video to, Rihanna and ASAP Rocky, I could have like 10,000 people in the chat room. Where are the, the anti-gynocracy activists? All these guys who want to have a for women's channel. Where are those guys at? AO says they are scared they ain't gonna show. Yeah, I want to give everybody a fair opportunity. But that's it, man. I just wanted to cover that real quick. I don't like when I hear misinformation about serious critical issues in this space. It really irks me. It's like nails to a chalkboard. Too often, too many people in this space want to spread misinformation and get away with it. And they have a lot of subscribers too. And it's like, what are we doing here? All right, thank you all for joining us, man. Please hit the like button on the way out and share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.